So I recently did my first event, videography, photography combo, and I had some thoughts. This video was for the Flashback Kickstarter event. I've worked with Flashback before. I shot their Kickstarter video. There'll be a link in the description if you want to see that video as well. And here's the video. We'll talk about it after.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, we kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we let the world we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, we kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, we kill it anyway.
So that was the event recap, basically for the Flashback Kickstarter launch event, where I actually did go with the guys. I did help them, shot a little bit of behind the scenes stuff sort of on the way there, and I did help set up a bit. And then obviously during the event, I was just sort of walking around with my camera, taking photos and videos. And I think the video is okay, but it's not great. And I'm gonna talk about why I think that happened and just sort of what I learned from shooting event videography and photography, and what you can sort of take away from my experience, seeing as it was my first time, what I'll take away from it, and just some lessons that I learned that might help. So the first thing that I think would have made a big difference is if I planned more ahead. So you just plan as much as you can beforehand. I sort of just went and I was like, I'm just gonna, capture bit of stuff on the way there, bit of stuff while we're setting up, and then once the event's going on, just sort of capture people doing stuff. And probably what I should have done is maybe tried to get a little bit more insight of how the night was gonna go, and then tried to plan out what sort of things that I needed to focus on getting. And another thing that comes with planning is sort of planning your shots. Not necessarily, I want this exact shot, then I want this exact shot, but having sort of a general idea of having some sort of wide shot of the whole venue and certain shots and transitions as well. So one thing that I tried to do a little bit, but sort of didn't for the most part, is like shooting for the transitions between the different shots. So I didn't really allow much room for that. And it was one of the things that I had in the back of my mind beforehand, but I didn't really end up doing it that well. And I definitely think it would have made the video a little bit better. And then just having an idea for what the final product will look like is better than going in with absolutely nothing and have to figure all that out in the edit. Now, obviously you can do that. You can just shoot everything and then in the edit, you just sort of like figure it out, which is kind of what I did. But if you're like me and you prefer shooting over editing, then, maybe you sort of start editing and you just sort of get sick of it after a bit. Because like I could shoot all day, but editing all day is tough. So yeah, have an idea in mind for what the final video should look like before you start, if you can. And another thing with events and stuff where you have a bunch of people around that aren't necessarily there for the shoot sort of thing, they're just attending the event, whatever the event is. You don't have to pretend you're not there sort of thing. You can ask people to do something for you. Like I asked one of the bartenders to grab a drink out of the ice to, you know, add that as a shot. And I probably should have done it much more. There was a couple times where I did ask people to do something, but it would have been better if I did it a bit more, so then I could have gotten more of the shots that I wanted, not just trying to capture things as they happen. And obviously if it doesn't make sense to do that, then don't do it. But if you can, and it makes sense to, you know, ask people, maybe if you see something that happens, just ask somebody to do that again and sort of recreate it. And like I mentioned before, if you know what is going to happen, if you know there's big moments coming up, get prepared and, you know, have sort of where you're gonna be, what sort of shots you're gonna do, whether you're gonna take photos or videos. I'll get to that point a bit later. But just, if you know how it's gonna go, plan for the big moments especially, because those are really the important ones. Like for this event, it was the speeches, the actual launch of the Kickstarter page, and then of course there was they're hitting the goal, which I did capture all of them on video, but I probably could have, you know, if I knew that they were coming up, which I kind of did, I just didn't really plan for it, I probably could have got a better shot. Then the final product would have turned out a bit better if I had planned just a little bit in advance. And two, the clients will really, you know, if you're shooting for a client, they'll really appreciate if you capture that big important moment, you know, like hitting the goal and then everybody celebrating and stuff like that. And when it comes to actually shooting, now I had this setup. I had my Sony a7 IV with the 7200 G Master Mark II on it, and I had, for the most of the event, I put on my Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. I did have a handle on the top and my Atomos Ninja 5, and I was using that setup for most of it. It was both too much and not enough, if that makes sense. It was, I feel like either just this with a microphone would be great, or a full-on rig with like everything on it, because that has the benefit of, you know, getting rid of those little like micro jitters and stuff like that, make everything look a bit smoother. And yeah, I just feel like the rig that I had wasn't heavy enough to do that, but it was heavier and more cumbersome than this, so it was sort of like that uncomfortable middle ground. So in my opinion, for that situation, I think either a smaller rig or a bigger rig would have worked better than the rig that I did use. And because I was using this setup and I didn't have my FX30 yet, all I was using was this lens and camera combination, and I was shooting photos and video, and I didn't have as much of a plan of what am I gonna video, what am I going to take photos of. So I was sort of deciding to switch between them at just any given moment. If there was something that made sense to take photos of, I would take photos. Like a lot of people posing at the wall with the big sign and everything, that was for taking photos, and I just thought I would get in there with my camera, take some nice photos of everybody taking their own photos. And then I also did try to take some other photos of just around, you know, a bunch of people. But then I was constantly switching back and forth between photo, video, S&Q mode even, because I did get some slow-mo stuff. And it was a lot to handle with just one camera, especially with the 7200, because that's another thing. The 7200 is great, and I love a good telephoto look, and it's great for portraits and stuff when you got people. But I feel like it would have been a little bit better to be able to go wider. So either having another camera that you can, you know, have a wider lens on, or maybe something like a 24-70 or 24-105, or maybe even like a 35-150, those Tamron and Samyang lenses. They look real nice. But yeah, either I would recommend only shooting video or photo, or if you are gonna do both, try your best to have a camera for each. I thought I was only gonna take photos during like the speeches, but I ended up taking a lot more photos because the stage wasn't very well lit, so those weren't the best photos that I was gonna be taking, so I took a bunch of other photos. Here's some of the photos that I took, by the way, they'll just be up here. And when it comes to this 7200, with the cropped 4K 50, when I was using my S&Q mode, it does kind of limit a bit because it was effectively a 105. So there's a 105-300 in APS-C mode. So with that crop, I couldn't get very close to things, so I had to step back, and then I had to worry about, you know, other people walking in the way or trying to shoot through gaps and stuff like that. So having a bit more of a versatile lens, especially if you have, you know, either an APS-C camera or, you know, a full frame camera that can't do full frame 4K 50 or 60. But that's my sort of overall experience. That's everything I really have to say about that. If you are interested in Flashback, I will leave the link to the Kickstarter in the description. While you're down there, there's other stuff to do there, and then go check out this video if you need something else to watch. Okay, bye.